This is the tutorial for the patterns module in the Art 161, part 2 for the border treatment. So the first thing we want to do for this assignment is create a new file. You're only going to need a single sheet of 8.5 by 11, and you're going to put all 6 of your border treatments on that single page. So we're going to go cruise up to a new file here in Illustrator. And I'm going to go ahead and jump up to the print area up here and use the letter size document. And coming over to the information, I'm going to go ahead and title this first initial, last name, patterns. This is part 2. And then let's convert this over to inches for our units that we're measuring so that we can see what's going on here. And you can either use the portrait or the landscape orientation. I'm going to use the landscape orientation, and we're going to need one single artboard, and the rest of this we can leave as is. So we're going to come down here to create. And here is where you're going to decide on what you want to have in the center of all your borders. So the center of the borders, what that's going to move around, should not change as far as the size in all 6 of the border treatments or the style that you're using for that. It should be consistent so that you can make an even comparison of all the borders in one space. So you can use some typography, you can use dingbats, you can use an icon or something like that if you would like to. You can always come up to the type and go into glyphs once you've created some text. And let me back up here a little bit, get rid of this text box. So going up to the type area and opening up your glyphs palette will open up all the different glyphs that are available for different typefaces. So coming over to the type tool here, I'm just going to click into the artboard, and this is where you can now specify in your properties tab what typeface you would like to use. And different typefaces have different glyphs. So for example, if we go into Super Clarendon here, you'll notice that this typeface has multiple glyphs inside. And you could use any of these. Of course, you could use any standard letters as well. But I'm going to pick something here that's maybe a little bit different. This resembles the Psychology logo. So I'm going to go with that here. Go ahead and close my glyphs palette. And I'm going to come over to my black arrow tool here. I'm going to increase the size of this text significantly, maybe about to 72 point. And actually, I'm going to double click inside the character size here and make this, let's do 100 point. So once you have created that, I would suggest outlining this. And you can copy this and paste it and keep that editable text off to the side of your artboard if you would like to. And then with the one that's inside the artboard here, I'm going to select on that using the black arrow tool. I'm going to come up to type, and I'm going to go to create outlines. And this is going to convert this from editable text into an actual shape. And you'll notice when I hit that, all of the properties here are changing from my text editing to my shape editing here. So here we can click into fill. For this project, you're only using black and white and or grayscale. So I'm just going to keep it black for right now. And to get started with this, you might want to create some simple sort of shapes around your object here. I'm holding Shift using the polygon tool. And actually, let's go back to this with our polygon tool. And I'm going to switch this to a stroke of black and a fill of none here. You can use a little toggle switch to do that, or you can click into these using your swatches and go to a fill of none and a stroke of black. And if I double click here, I can actually create a polygon with multiple sides to that. So I'm going to do something like that there with 12 sides, and maybe adjust the point size of my stroke over here in my stroke options. And you can always come up to your window and open up your stroke window as well. If you don't see all of the options, you can click on the little button here to hide or show options. And this enables you to change your point size, to use rounded points, depending on how that is being used, how you're going to align the stroke, whether it's to the inside, the outside of that stroke, create dashed lines here, so on and so forth. So let's do something like that here. Whoops. Come back to our black arrow tool, and I'm just going to center this over my mark. And of course we could come in here and maybe create some additional shapes here as well with circles. Oops. Ellipse tool maybe. Positioning something on the inside or the outside of that. Maybe this time we'll use a dashed line and a thinner line here. Let's see how something like this works. And if you're ever struggling to line up your different options, let's say we have a piece here that's slightly off, maybe this is off a little bit here as well. You can always go through and click and select all of these objects here and use the alignment option here to align horizontally as well as aligning vertically, and that will position all of those elements in alignment. Now in this case here, I'm going to select on my object and just bring it down a little bit, visually center that a little bit more since I don't have as much elements going on within that. So even though that's not perfectly centered, visually it looks a little bit more centered. And you can see where you can expand on this. One thing you might want to try is going to edit and copy, edit, paste in front, and then expanding this circle outwards. So by holding shift, that will take one of the corners and expand it and keep those original proportions. But if we hold shift and option or alt on your keyboard, that will expand it from the center and allow you to kind of continue that concentric circle that you might be striving for within your design. And maybe just give it a little bit of a different weight there. And of course, you can always come in and specify the dash if you wanted to change that up as well, make that look a little bit different. So that might be one option to get started. And then when we get into our next border treatment, you're going to create 6 in total. I'm going to go ahead and take my element that I have in the center, and I'm just going to copy that over. So I can either go to copy and paste, or I can also hold the Alt or Option key and hold the Shift key to just bring that over here. Now for this one here, we're going to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to create a circle around this object. I'm going to go ahead and give this a fill of none and a stroke of black. And again, I'm going to go ahead and kind of center this visually around my object. Now what I'm going to use this circle for is to act as a guide to duplicate elements around this in a radial fashion. So first thing I want to do here is create that circle, center it around my mark, and now I want to bring some guides in so that I can see where the center of this circle is, and you'll see why this becomes helpful in a second. So in order to bring our guides in, we need to bring our rulers up so we can see those. So I'm going to come up to View, Rulers, and Show Rulers. And you'll notice that now I can see my rulers at the top and the left of my artboard here. And if I click with my mouse, my black arrow tool, into that top ruler and drag down to the center of that circle, I can place a guideline right at the center of that circle. And I actually had the circle selected so that I can see that first. I'm going to do the same thing over here on the left. Come over to the ruler, click and drag over to the center of that circle, land right on the center there so that I can identify the center of that circle. Now I want to create an object that's going to go around this. And let's say I wanted to create some radial lines potentially. I'm going to come over to my line segment tool, and I'm just going to create a line holding the Shift key going upwards. I'm going to come over to my black arrow tool, and I want to make sure that this is centered on my guideline there, which it is. I'll bring this down just a little bit. Now I want this to travel around this circle. It'd be really difficult to rotate each one of these. So what we're going to do here is we're going to select on that top element. It can be any object or element. And I'm going to come over to my rotation tool. That's underneath the type tool. It's like the spinning circle. And the default rotation tool is just to spin around the center of that object that you have selected, which is not what we want right now. We want that to spin from the center of our circle here. So in order to tell the computer that, where we want it to go, the rotation, I'm going to use the rotation tool, and I'm going to click and hold the Alt or Option key and click right on the center of that circle. And you'll notice that now that has changed to the center of the circle for my rotation, and it's also brought up my rotation dialog box here. Now depending on how many of these you want to go around the circle, that's going to affect the rotation degree. So The full rotation of a circle is 360 degrees. So if we wanted 40 of these lines to go around this circle, we would want to take 360 and divide it by 40. So I'm going to cruise up to my calculator here. Of course, you can use your phone or your application on your desktop. I'm going to go to 360 divided by 40 because I want 40 of those to go around my mark. And that gives me 9. So I know that I need this to go a degree of 9 degrees in order to get 40 of those. So I'm going to go ahead and click into my degrees of my rotation and hit 9. Now this is important. Instead of hitting OK, you want to hit copy. And what happens when we hit copy is it is going to take that single one and leave it that we've created, and it's going to make a new one at 9 degrees, rotating around the center of this circumference that we have indicated. Now we've done 2 actions. We've copied an element and we've rotated it. So we want to duplicate both of those actions. And the shortcut for that on your keyboard is the Command D button. So if you click Command next to your space bar and then hit D, it's going to duplicate both of those actions. And if I hit Command D again, it's going to continue to go around that circle at an even spacing, and it's going to create 40 of these until it hits right back up to where I need it to. Okay? Now you could continue with this, of course. You could take those sort of objects and create more of them if you wanted to. You could elongate some of those. You can change up what you might want that to be as well. Let's do this with another object around the same circumference here. I'm going to grab a polygon tool here, and I'm going to bring down the amount of sides. Let's use a 7. And I'm going to scale this down. Again, I'm holding Shift and Alt to scale that to the center. And let's kind of place this here and just enlarge it just a little bit. So I have another object now. Again, I want to go to my rotation tool. I want to hold Alt or Option, find the center of my circle here and click in that center. And here's where you want to bring up the math. Now if we wanted to have 40 of these again, we could enter a 9. If we wanted to have more or less, we could do that as well. Let's go back to the calculator here. And this time let's do 80. So if we wanted 80, you guessed it, it's going to be 4.5, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put in 4.5. And not OK, but hitting the copy key, that will place that over. Now again, Command and D will duplicate that shape until it starts to move all the way around. And because we are using sort of even number here that coincides with the previous one, start to get some pretty cool shapes that are going on. You can see how you could continue to expand on this. Now that original circle that we made, you could use this if you would like to. Maybe you play with the weight of that and maybe bring it in a little bit, possibly even copying and pasting, bring it on to the outside as well, or you could also remove that. We don't necessarily need that anymore. The main reason for that was just to find the center of this, and you can leave it or remove it if you would like. So those are a few different ways to kind of go about and create these borders. Your task now is to kind of go through and create some variation. You can also do things, back up here a little bit, where you might want to use a black fill for your shape and no strokes. Oops, black fill, stroke of none. I'm going to arrange this shape to the back, send to back, and then select my mark and convert this to white instead to create some variation there, possibly. But you want to make sure that this stays the same size and doesn't change throughout your border so that you can have some sort of comparison within the space. So that is the task for this project. You're going to do 6 of these in total, creating variation of more detailed ones, some that might be a little more minimal, and exploring all the different tools you have at your disposal.